Hello, everyone. Actually, today we have a very critical guest, but he also from our partner university from Louis in Italy. So, but I would like to first introduce Mohammed Hashash. Mohammed Hashash actually from Morocco. He holds master degree from Mohammed One University, Morocco in humanities and area studies, as well as another master's degree in European studies from Louis University in Rome. And he has completed his PhD in political theory with a major in Islamic thought at the same institution, where he now gives lecture as an associated professor, and he has worked in many excellent universities across Europe as a research fellow and visiting scholar. So, but his research expertise include contemporary Arab Islamic intellectual history, religion, ethics, and politics in the Arab world, European Islam, and Islamic thought in Western Europe, and more. So, and today he actually present with us this presentation titled Mediterranean Intervening Identities with a focus on intellectual exchanges and Islam in the basin. Okay, welcome, Mohammed. This floor is yours, and you can start. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Olas, for this generous introduction. Yes, I am a lecturer in the department. My which is in the heart of the Mediterranean, Rome, and it's from here and already from my other edge, my country of origin, that my thinking of the in Mediterranean started. What I will do today is to raise certain issues about the identity issues with reference to the tradition I know best and which I have been working on for at least the last 15 years. But before doing that and put in the place of Islam, in the idea I try to work on is that there is, despite the multiple identities the Mediterranean has developed throughout the history, there is more mm, converging ideas within different traditions of this Mediterranean, south of the Mediterranean, north of the Mediterranean, because of one major element, which is migration of physical human beings and migration of ideas. So the Mediterranean has historically been a space of these sometimes conflictual ideas, yes, but at the same time, diplomatic relations, commerce relations, and ideas, cultural, philosophical, theological exchanges. But the point is that this current Mediterranean that is spoken about by various leading figures of different important countries in this Mediterranean, there is still a lot to be done on the cultural side, and that's where why I am interested in this cultural, in which cultural aspect in which religion plays an important role. Let me start with the idea that the Mediterranean, in Mediterranean studies by expert scholars, historians, they speak of the larger Mediterranean, and no need to say that Brodel has played an important role in disseminating the concept, the French historian. And that's why some other recent historians speak of the classic Mediterranean, which we know, the north and south and the countries that are there, and then speak of other Mediterraneans, because this Mediterranean has traveled in history because of various reasons, because of explorations of the New World, for example. But before we reach that, we can speak about Saharan Mediterranean, because Mediterranean has been in touch with the desert. And some speak of the northern Mediterranean because the Baltic countries or Nordic countries are part of this Mediterranean through the north of the Mediterranean. And then there is the Indian Ocean Mediterranean, because of the explorations in history during the last second 5 centuries ago. Uh, and the Mediterranean worldviews and cultures migrated through the Atlantic, but before that to through the Indian Ocean. And then you have, again, as you said, just the Atlantic Mediterranean or Mediterranean Atlantic, depending, and uh, because of the discovery of the New World, and you have what is called the global Mediterranean. It means that the major cultures, from the cuisine to theology and philosophy, they have impacted world history. The way the Mediterranean has been impacted by other cultures, especially the ancient world, not only so-called Mediterranean, Mesopotamian world or Middle Eastern world, but the Asian world as well. So this diversity in the Mediterranean is spoken about mostly by elite politicians and academics, but in terms of curricula and the public culture, I think there is a lot to be done. That's why we still see ideas of nationalistic ideas, exclusivist ideas in both the north and south, and the rise of populisms, etc. And my interest in this Mediterranean intellectual history uh, takes certain concepts as concepts through which we can we, we, we can develop educative projects, university projects, scientific projects, the way this project has come about, and it's Mediterranean thinking, which is another word used by Miriam Cook and then by other historians or intellectual historians like the Algerian French Mohamed Arkoun, and many others. And before that, from the southern Mediterranean, Taha Hussein, who is leading Arab modernist in the 1930s, wrote a very rich, condensed book about the future of culture in Egypt, in which he put Egypt he tried to read the history of Egypt and its interaction with the world through Mediterranean lenses. So there is in that perspective a southern view of how the Mediterranean is looked at. And the Greeks, as philosophic tradition, is often taken in terms of philosophy as a starting point, and shared by various traditions in the south and north of the Mediterranean, and not only of the north Mediterranean, because of the role Arab and Islamic philosophy and classical sciences played in communicating with the Greek tradition. So why I am making these historical notes? Just again to come to the political, which is often emphasized over the cultural. Though the politicians often refer again to the cultural, but with maybe, I would say, so far less investment. And that's the role of the university and this project that brings various universities and traditions together. If we refer to the three major political projects from the 1990s, Barcelona Convention 1995, or the European Neighborhood Policy since 2004 and its enlarged aims afterwards, or the Union for the Mediterranean since 2008, they all refer to culture. And they refer to it through either a pillar of social cooperation or sometimes in immigration, which is put also under security security thinking. Uh, but despite the emphasis on culture, one one can see that of the because of the current debates and exchanges in the media uh, about the immigrants, uh, uh, one can then say that there is a lot of work that is still not done properly. Otherwise, if things were done properly, we might not have had these debates that are now well studied, well documented in terms of, I mean, the Islamophobia, for example, or anti-Semitism, or populism, right wing narratives. These are uh, uh, studied subjects, documented in many books, in journal articles, and they do reflect the failures at the cultural and political level. Um, and now, if I want to focus more on the area I am more kind of expert in, uh, I can say that there is a lot of in modern times work among Muslim scholars and non-Muslim scholars to see immigration in the modern times, especially since Second World War, since the 50s and 60s, as a historical occasion for further understanding of this diversity of the Mediterranean. And it could and for me it could be an occasion to enrich the idea of an overlapping civilization. The idea of an overlapping civilization is a term in the singular borrowed from Brodel, uh, who uses overlapping civilizations when he speaks about the Mediterranean in the 15th and 16th century, especially after the end of Muslim presence in Spain and the cultural and political choices Spain did at the time, and the issue of expulsion of Muslims and Jews, etc. So he speaks of that pre-moment, that tragic moment. He speaks of coexistence, exchanges between these north-south of the Mediterranean, which are, as I said before, though they appear north and south, but they are if we expand the lenses, these were in touch with the Asian world, the African, sub-Saharan African world, and later on the new world through the Atlantic. So based on this idea, and I try to read what is being said in terms of geopolitics around the Mediterranean, the place of the south of the Mediterranean in international relations, as theorized by some prominent figures of the West. And here comes I speak of four narratives. These narratives are the narratives that look at immigration, and by extension, every immigrant is a Muslim. So they look at Islam and Europe, Western Europe in particular, in terms of antagonism, because of historical relations. And then there are narratives that look at Islam and Europe, not versus Europe. And these narratives try to see beyond the conflictual side that happens between societies and policies and politics and economies and rivalry, etc. They try to emphasize the exchanges at the cultural and diplomatic level. Even in contemporary times, when there are conflicts sometimes between certain countries in the north and certain ones in the south, their diplomatic relations go on. Ordinary people keep traveling. Business keeps going. So these are aspects that are studied by historians and being underlined in these relations, and they should not be ignored. On the contrary, in these historical moments in which there is more globalization of aspirations, I think they are the aspects that should be underlined more. And then there is the third narrative, which is looking at Islam through immigrants in Europe. And here, this narrative has different subcategories, and tries to see that Islam is not new in the Mediterranean, and especially is not new in Europe. Islam has always been there in Europe, through Spain, Sicily, and then through Central Europe, through the Balkans, through the Ottomans, and then into modern times. And then you have this fourth narrative, which tries to look at immigrants or Islam in particular in Europe, but with the idea of overcoming this dichotomy. You know, it's high time for this narrative that says it's high time to overcome this dichotomy between Islam and the West, Islam versus the West or versus Europe. And because at least 70 years of Muslim presence in Europe has marked European identity so far, and has influenced the multicultural debate in it at all, political, but also especially at the philosophical level. And at the same time, Islamic thinking has been challenged, and Muslims in Europe and also outside Europe, tendency in them, current in them, among these, also defends this idea of overcoming beyond Islam and Europe. Especially that Islam is a religion and Europe is a cultural and political entity. So even the labeling is erroneous, and it has to be overcome. When immigrants traveled around the Mediterranean or from south to north, and at certain historical moments from north to south, in terms of when there were historical major crises, the people do not travel as Muslims, or travel as Jews, or as Christians, or atheists, they travel as human beings. And the labels that are put on them as are later comers, they are labels that are the product of cultural centrisms and political interests. They, because of populism, exclusive nationalism. Well, nationalism, of course, is not a bad thing, but it's exclusivist nationalism that has to be warned against. That's why nationalisms differ. It depends on which nationalism we are referring to and in which context. Is it the 1930s, for example? That's dangerous fascist Nazi nationalism. But if it is nationalism that tries to bring social contract in a particular society that is divided, so that people can democratically and plurally live together, that's what social contract, and that's at the end what democracy tries to do, to bring different tendencies that could be nationalistic, ethnic, linguistic, religious, philosophic, under one umbrella. So what I try to do in my reading of European Islam and Islam in Europe is to underline these dynamics that try to see the commonalities between different traditions, without at the same time ignoring or underlying differences. There are differences and they will remain, but I think what the scholars I do study and the data I do have is that they are scholars who think through shared Mediterranean, and that's that should be underlined here, I would say. Again, the challenges to this idea and project of research are many, because on daily basis we are bombarded with data that speak or refer to antagonisms at the political, at the economic, at the cultural level, religious level, but still there are always the other narratives that try to overcome these, and that's Mediterranean thinking project. And I think I'm on time. I can stop here, and we can exchange if there are certain points points that need some more reflection. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mohammed Hashash. Actually, you lightened us related to Mediterranean thinking. That's also a very critical component, Islam and other otherness issues. Thank you. That was a brilliant webinar. Thank you for this.
Thank you, Olas, for the occasion. I appreciate it. And then I wish the project all success.
Yeah. Thank you.